You're probably going to need a cup of coffee and a notebook for this one. Just letting you know. Today we're going to be covering listings on a couple of different platforms, but mainly eBay. Along with that, setting up a storefront. So right off the bat, the main reason I don't use Etsy as much as I do eBay is because Etsy is primarily for handmade stuff, whereas eBay is predominantly for resale and collectibles. There are a ton of other sites like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, but I typically don't use them. Regardless of whatever platform you choose to sell on, they're all pretty much going to have the same building blocks. Now, we're not going to do a deep dive on a lot of this in this video, but it helps to be aware of it. Now, when you're setting up a seller account or a store on eBay, there's a couple of things you got to think about. You're going to have to create an account, and that account is going to require certain information. Banking account numbers, name, address, etc. Depending on how far in you want to go with it, you may want to consider coming up with a pretty catchy store name, graphics, logos. But one of the most important things you have to do during this time, though, is coming up with whatever your store description is. This will be a fluid development. Think of it more like an ongoing process, where you're going to be figuring out your search engine optimization, SEO, your keywords, and search terms. It's also helpful to go ahead and get a couple of pictures, images of your operation and process, kind of behind the scenes stuff. This list is going to be brief, but I want to give you a heads up on what to expect when you're creating your first listing. Obviously, a picture is worth 1,000 words. When you're creating a listing on eBay, it helps to have a lot of pictures. In fact, you can have up to 24 per listing. The basics for this is to make sure that the pictures aren't blurry, they're framed properly, and the lighting is acceptable. Once again, this note is just for reference. If you want a more thorough video on it, click up here. If you want a more thorough video on it, click up here. But it is going to be a topic that you're going to have to get pretty versed in. Up next is your title, and you are limited to 80 characters, and you're going to have to make every single one of them count. This is where understanding search engine optimization and keywords come into play, and this is more of alchemy or dark magic if you want to look at it that way. Essentially what you're trying to do is figure out how people are going to find your listings. Up next is categories, and now is the best of time as any to introduce them, because this is ultimately going to define a lot of the specifics for your items whenever you go to list them. So you might as well go ahead and sort them out now in your own personal system and for eBay. When you're writing your description, you're given an option of what they're calling an AI assist. Templates for descriptions come in handy, especially if you have footer stuff that you want to add or for something that you find yourself repeating a lot. Condition, be honest, there's no use in lying to the customer. It will come back to haunt you. If it's like new, it's like new. If it's poor shape, it's poor shape. With eBay, you've got two options. One of them is an auction, and the next one is buy it now. Auctions can run from 1 to 10 days, and buy it now is exactly what it sounds like. You set the price, and it sells when somebody is willing to pay that price. Buy it now does allow you to accept offers, but you'll have to figure out what the bottom dollar is that you'll take for it. Although we're going to cover it in a future video, there is one thing worth mentioning, and it takes a little bit of figuring to get to it. But you can do a buy it now and set it up as a pick and choose. This is helpful if you have a lot of items that are just slightly different. Think of it like DVDs. This allows the customer to pick and choose, combine shipping, and get volume discounts. We're going to go pretty deep in this next week with shipping. We need to mention it now. You're going to need to know the weight and the approximate dimensions. This will help you calculate the shipping costs. Pressing down, the next section you'll see is promotion. Promotions is essentially eBay is agreeing to advertise your item to a broader audience, but it comes at a price. That price is a percentage of whatever it sells for. Although it may seem like percentages are getting taken away with every single step, this is one of them that I would recommend. The next one's donations. This is up to you if you want to pick a charity to donate to and what percentage. Once you get through with all that, you have the option to preview or go ahead and list it. For all intents and purposes, we're going to focus on what I consider to be the most important aspects of this process and how to turn it into something that is repeatable and efficient. Like I said, there's an entire video dedicated to images, best practices, how to format, controlling lighting, and editing. But there are best practices to the process. Aside from developing and maintaining a consistent format, simple things like sequencing the order in which you photograph and then store can help massively when it comes time to find them again. In addition, if you are transferring these pictures from a device to a computer, ensure and verify that they have been moved and they are properly secure before deleting them off your device. Ask me how I know this. Cataloging, specifically data entry, is probably the least glamorous of all the steps in this process, but it has to be done. Although I recommend using Excel for a basic spreadsheet, you can use Google Sheets, Access, or even QuickBooks. And in worst case scenario, write it in a notebook. If it's something that you're willing to keep or sell, make sure you get a record of it. Type it, copy and paste it, whatever works, but get it done and get it done right. And honestly, one of the best tools I found is Google Lens. With it, you can move from the machete approach and more into using a scalpel like a surgeon. This helps at this stage because it helps you verify what it is that you have. Is it worth your time going forward? The next important aspect to mention is keywords. And if you followed the steps up to this point, this step will be a breeze, at least at face value. This will help you hone in your title and description. By forcing you to refine your search terms, it will help customers find your listings quicker. What I'm fixing to read you came straight off of eBay's website considering create good content. And they even did the math for you. Describe your item the best you can and in as much detail as possible. You should include approximately 200 words of visible text in your description with the most important keyword phrases comprising 5 to 7% of the total. In 200 words of text, you'll want to use your keywords 10 to 14 times. And remember way back whenever I said do not abuse keywords? Here's why. Avoid keyword spamming. Do not overuse keywords in an item description as it can reduce the effectiveness of content. Moreover, keyword spamming is a violation of eBay policy. As well as an irritation to prospective buyers. And then a couple of other secondary considerations from them. So there's just a handful of best practices from eBay regarding writing descriptions. And don't forget, your title is essentially going to be a short, condensed reflection of whatever that description is. What are the main lessons learned here? What's the takeaway? Building that working knowledge takes time. It's not something that you gain overnight. That information is invaluable and it doesn't just help with listing. It helps you whenever you're looking at stuff to bid on or buy. Has somebody missed something that you happen to have a vast knowledge of? That is capitalization of opportunity. Systems aren't all bad. If you can figure out a system that helps you do something faster, more thorough, and be more efficient with your time, that's value added. And it's how you survive and succeed in this business.
Fabulous.